I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Institute for Higher Consciousness. This class today is going to be covering some material. We are in the second dimension. We've already done our foundational studies and the intermediary information we've gone through already. So for those that have not seen the basics and the foundations, you may need to go back and look at those for some of this to make sense to you. However, for those in the class, you will be right up to speed and you'll know exactly where I am. So welcome to today's course. And I want to jump right in and get this party started and get the opportunity to get as much out of this time together as we can. With that being said, let me once more and again, I always like to introduce myself to you for those that may not know who I am and what we're doing. As I said, today is actually an opportunity to cover the boss energy path, and again, this is proprietary to myself. The anchoring the core squared mysticism is what we are covering on today. And so this right here, let me preface this by saying, by no means am I trying to discredit or discount Christianity in any way, shape, or form. So let me give that disclaimer right off the bat. I'm trying to really bring us into dealing with mindsets and things that we have perpetuated, especially in the Black community, that may not be the best for us, that can actually be detrimental. So let me give you that disclaimer right up front. Let me say, because the United States of America is so largely Christian, that is why I'm using this particular route to share on today. However, everybody that's here, you know that I am interfaith and that all faith traditions are welcome here. BTD Mom, I see you. Good morning. All faith traditions are welcome here. I'm just coming from the Judeo-Christian again, because it's really one of the largest influences of our spiritual development in the United States of America. However, this is not to discount or degrade any other faith tradition that is here. So I want to make that very, very clear. Now, today I'm going to be talking about pleasure and pain, recalibrating expectations. That's our thought on today. Pleasure and pain. And I say pleasure and pain. I had a little in my mind, I had a little discussion with myself. Do I want to say pleasure versus pain? But no, as we know, we've talked already in the foundations, understand two poles. We understand two poles. And to have that place of balance in certain areas, there are going to be two poles that are involved in the scenario. So I wanted to be very clear to make this pleasure and pain, because the two go hand in hand. Now, what I do want to address as we get ready to move forward, and again, we're talking about mysticism, and as we identify mysticism as it relates to so many different ideas about things that go beyond the natural into the supernatural. So when you start getting into spirituality and when you start getting into mindsets that are produced as a result of spirituality, that still involves levels and elements of spirituality as a mystic, as something that can happen, something that occurs above and beyond just the natural. We do believe in the supernatural as well that can happen. Today, I want to really focus in on this particular topic. And again, I want to go back and just refresh. Our topic today is revolving around our mindset of pleasure and pain. Pleasure and pain. Now, With that, I'm going to really tackle the idea, the salvific value of suffering. I think I touched on it a little bit in Foundations, but I didn't go real deeply into it. The salvific value of suffering, or there is a saving grace that you get from suffering. There is a saving factor that comes into play from suffering. So that therein lies the salvific, the saving element, and the value that comes from suffering. Now, from within the Judeo-Christian mindset, suffering is huge. Suffering is huge. You know, I can remember growing up hearing from the pulpit, this is a suffering way. This is a suffering way. And said with such pride and with such energy. But at the same time, what I'm trying to bring us to in this point of thinking in our boss energy, that the way we have heard it, the way that we have taught it has been extremely imbalanced. So hang with me here. And I know, again, for some, this may be challenging. For those that are not of the Judeo-Christian faith, these principles may sound very odd and unfamiliar to you, but you still may see elements of it at work in your lives, in whatever faith tradition you practice, including none. You may find elements of these behaviors that still are very limiting and very detrimental to boss energy. So anchoring the core deals with grounding yourself. And that's where we're talking about anchoring the core in mysticism specifically, but anchoring the core, knowing and understanding what that's about. It deals with grounding yourself. That grounding includes reviewing the thoughts and beliefs that shape your mindset. Is your mindset a growth mindset? Is your mindset a fixed mindset? And that's a question, beloved, that you can only answer for yourself. Nobody can look at you and tell you you're operating from this or that or the other. And I'm going to say that kind of tongue in cheek. Yes, I can look at people and I can listen to them and say, yes, that's a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. But that's something that you have to do introspection for yourself. I said, I guess I want to say ultimately, you've got to come to whether or not you're going to operate from a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. If you want to know what those mindsets are, again, we covered that in the Foundations level. So you can go back to Foundations and look at growth mindset versus fixed mindset. My hope and dream and boss energy dictates that you move into a place of growth mindset, because that's the place that you want to reside and abide from. Now, that being said, the salvific value of suffering in Judeo-Christianity, the perspective places a tremendous amount and a tremendous value in the idea of suffering. I've even heard theology such that if you're not suffering, then you must be on the devil's territory. If you're not suffering, the devil already has you. If you're not suffering, you're not suffering because if the devil's already got you, there's no reason for you to suffer. That suffering in turn really becomes a measuring stick as to whether or not you really know God. So that element right there, the salvific value of suffering, sets up a tremendous energy. And if you look at the little meme that I put in, good morning, Kai Chick. I knew you were doing a community service, so I wasn't expecting you this morning, but it's so good to see you. So if you look at that little blurb that I put in, negativity, it can only affect you if you're on the same frequency. Negativity, it can only affect you if you're on the same frequency. Vibrate higher. Now, when you have this mindset and this doctrinal understanding embedded in you, I mean, just all in your mind, in your heart, in your thinking, in everything, it just permeates who you are because you believe you are called to suffer. You believe that the godly way is to suffer. Then that frequency, that's what you're going to create. That's what is going to affect you. That's what you're going to get. I often like to go back when I deal with this topic, the story of Job from the Bible, where if you remember, Job said, "The thing I feared the most has come upon me." And a lot of people get very disturbed when I say this because we don't want to look at any of our Bible characters in any negative way, shape, or form. And not so much that I'm looking on Job in a negative form, but I want you to understand you create the fruit of your lips. He said every time the servant came running to Job and had another bad story to tell. Servant came running to Job, had another bad story to tell. Servant came running to Job and had another bad story to tell. Understand that the man said, "The thing I feared the most has come upon me." And so I am espousing to you this idea that the fear that we operate in, it will create and manifest as well. Some of you, maybe in today's vernacular, would say, "I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop." You live that life that's always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then even when some good comes to your life, it's like you're holding your breath. How long is this going to last? Because I'm waiting for that other shoe to drop. This is the concept that I'm approaching, and this is the concept that I am attacking, if you will, on today. That is no place and space to live. So this salvific value of suffering that permeates the Judeo-Christian perspective and placing so much value in suffering creates a mindset in people that it's like, and if I'm not suffering, what's wrong with me? And especially for Black people and people of color. So I want to address this head on because, again, we are dealing with pleasure and pain. So with the suffering, we identify so tremendously with the pain factor that most of us don't even know what the pleasure factor is. And so I want to, even from the perspectives of the Bible, I want to look at John 10 and 10, and I'm not, this isn't a sermon. These are just reference points, if you will. And I put them in because I understand that a lot of people from the Judeo-Christian background will be offended by some of what I'm saying today because there is that salvific value of suffering they just refuse to let go of. Now, with that being said, what do we do with this idea of John 10 and 10? That you understand that the whole purpose of the Messiah coming was to give us life and life more abundantly. How can you identify life and life more abundantly when the only factor that you relate to is pain and no pleasure? And unless you're in some sort of twisted scenario, twisted to me, that you want and cannot have pleasure without tremendous amounts of pain, you know, if that's where you're operating from, so be it. However, I'm not there. I'm not that one. So I believe that you can experience tremendous amounts of pleasure without having to have pain attached to it to do it, in my opinion. So when I talk about life and life more abundantly, what I'm espousing to here is the idea that pleasure upon pleasure in his right hand are pleasures forevermore. And if all of this is the case, that there was the opportunity to have life and life more abundantly. Good morning, Cassandra Awoke. Come on in. If he gave us the opportunity to have life and life more abundantly, why is it that we live in an abundance of pain and death? This is a challenging question that I want you to ask yourself from your theological perspectives, from your faith traditions. What is my belief surrounding pleasure and pain? And do I believe that I'm called to have pain, 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 pain? Oh, and a little pleasure, pain, 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 pain. Oh, and a little pleasure, pain, pain, pain. Is that your mindset? Is that your experience? Is that your reality? And then to begin to question ourselves, are we creating that reality because that's what we've been taught and that's what we believe? And I'm going to go to John 15:11, where it says that your joy, he said, I did this, that your joy, that my joy might remain in you and that your joy might be full. So I wanted to deal and put and interject those concepts in your lives, that even from that tradition in the Judeo-Christian perspective, the idea is not about suffering perpetually. The idea is about life and life more abundantly. And again, that God's joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. So this is an area that a lot of times people will immediately migrate towards. As Jesus suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise. And Jesus suffered, Jesus suffered, Jesus suffered. Let's review how Jesus suffered. And again, my goal here is not to tear down Judeo-Christianity, because I want this to be embraced by all faith traditions. I am your spiritual thought leader, all faith traditions. Any of the faith traditions that espouse to these areas and mindsets of suffering, I'm just explaining it from the Judeo-Christian perspective. This is not an attack against Judeo-Christianity. This is an attempt to bring us out of that mindset so that we're not always that person that's waiting for the other shoe to drop. Let's review how Jesus suffered, shall we? He had a betrayal of a close friend. Betrayal of a close friend. Now, I want to challenge you. If you're that person, good morning, truck driver, come on in here, and I see you lurking. So much love to you. If you're that person that's always scrutinizing everybody that's in your life, and you're always looking over your shoulder to see, do all these people in your environment have a knife and a dagger in their hand waiting to stab you in the back? This is another element of what we have created and developed from this salvific value of suffering type of mindset. Oh, you're going to be betrayed. They're going to betray you. The closest one to you is going to betray you. It was my own familiar friend that betrayed me. That is true. But I want you to look at it from this ratio. He was betrayed by 1 out of 12. So that's an 11-1 ratio. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? He was betrayed by 1. Even though you say the rest of them scattered, the rest of them ran away, but they did not betray him. So I want us to recalibrate. That's what we're talking about. Recalibrating our expectations. Many times you get exactly what you expect. If you come in and you're fearful, the thing that I feared the most has come upon me. If you come in and you're expecting everybody in your circle to betray you, I want you to do some inner searching of your core and say, what is it in you that only attracts betraying types of friends? What is it in you that only migrates and is magnetized to individuals that we betray you, or individuals that you will betray? That speaks to a core issue within us. And I know sometimes we don't want to look at that, but that's a reality right there. There's something going on internally. If every single person that we have in our world is a betrayer, why is this all that I attract? Because again, I want to talk about the energy. Is that the energy, and is that the frequency that you're operating on? Because even as I said, I said this in the earlier blurb that I put in, negativity, it can only affect you if you're on that same frequency. So I'm challenging you to say, what frequency am I operating from? What vibrational level do I need to vibrate? Don't blame it on the people. Do I need to vibrate higher? Do I know that a Judas Iscariot is going to come? Do I know that a betrayer is going to come? Yes. And that's no shock, stun, and amazed statement. But betrayal by a close friend, that ratio, I'm telling you, was 11-1. Because even though 1 betrayed him, 11 did not. And I want you to start changing this mentality where your expectation is always overloaded and you go to the negative before you go to the positive. I make this point that it's easy to play the dozens because you can come up with all kinds of negativity to say about a person and about their family, about whatever. It's so easy to go there in our society. But if you ask somebody, say something good, tell me the good traits about this individual, people will be like, and it seems like it's really a chore for them to come up with good qualities and good characteristics because we're always acclimated to seeing the negative things first. So I'm going to go there again. How did Jesus suffer in the flesh? He had 1 out of 11. 1 out of 11, beloved. 1 out of 11. Get recalibrated and get the balance back in your world. Hear me when I say that. Number 2, how many days was he known to suffer? Now I'm gonna say this again. How many days was he known to suffer? Well, let's look on Thursday night. He went from judgment hall to judgment hall. On Thursday night, he was betrayed. On Thursday night, he got the kiss from Judas and the betrayal. On Thursday, and all of this is happening in this time window. On Thursday night, even the betrayal of his close friend manifesting and acting itself out. On Thursday night, Friday, we're saying again, from judgment hall to judgment hall Thursday. Then Friday, we have the crucifixion. And then he's in the tomb, in the womb of the ground, so that he can resurrect for 3 days. So at the end of the day, look at what I calculated here. And why did I do this? Because I want you all to get a different perspective. Good morning, Den Darn. Welcome to the Institute for Higher Consciousness. This is our open session for the month. Come on in and make yourself at home. So I bring this point up specifically for this to hopefully drive a point home with you. So on Thursday, we see him being betrayed. On Thursday, we see him going from judgment hall to judgment hall and all of the things that they did to him. We see that on Thursday. Friday, we see him crucified. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we see him in the grave. Sunday, we see him rise from the dead. So you got 4 days that you're dealing with. So again, I'm coming head on against this salvific value of suffering. So when we look at that in tabulation, we're saying out of, and we say that Jesus was 33 and a half years when he died. Take 33 and a half calendar years, you get 12,227.5 days. You hear what I'm saying? You get 12,227.5 days that he lived on the face of this earth, roughly. Now, so you want to take 4. Now, yes, those 4 days were horrific days. I'm not taking that away. Those 4 days were horrendous days. But Jesus didn't wake up every day expecting to have a bad day. Jesus didn't wake up every day expecting to suffer. Jesus didn't wake up every day expecting the shoe to drop. And even as people were angry at him and they tried to lay hold of him, he would just disappear in the crowd. He had that boss energy and he would just go on. Jazzy Mimi, come on in here. Good to have you this morning. This is our open session for Institute for Higher Consciousness. Welcome to you today. So again, you're talking about out of 12,227.5 days, we saw 4 days of horrendous suffering. And that, I want us to take that in its correct appropriation and say, do I really feel that the idea, if I'm arming myself as Jesus suffered in the flesh, and again, this is for all faith traditions, I'm just coming from the Judeo-Christian perspective on today. If Jesus suffered sure enough suffered, y'all. I'm not taking that away from the suffering, but 4 out of 12,227.5 days. Are we really arming ourselves likewise when we have so bought into this idea of the salvific value of suffering, that this is a suffering way? Jesus did not suffer every single day. Jesus walked in boss energy. Jesus made a difference and an impact. Jesus was not concerned, and the suffering did not occur until it was time for him to go through that metamorphosis. J Trey 707, come on in here. You have joined us in our open session of Institute for Higher Consciousness on today. We're glad to have you. So let's be clear. Let's be clear right here. So we're talking about 4 days out of 12,227.5 days. Does that somehow equate to you and relate to you that your life is supposed to be about suffering? And then let's come to the last point. And again, this is for all faith traditions. I'm just coming from the Judeo-Christian because it is the dominant, prominent in this country. But if you see yourself here in any way, shape, or form, if you are that person that, I don't care what your faith tradition is, where you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop and you believe suffer, 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 that's why I'm talking to you today, everybody. So I want us to look at then after he went through the metamorphosis of being buried in the womb of the ground and going down and completing the process, when he came back, he was marked in an all-powerful state. You understand the words that I'm saying? When he came back in an all-powerful state. Come on, J Trey. You always thought, since we were always told that he suffered for all of us, past, present, and future. And that is absolutely positively a valid point, J Trey. And it flies directly in the face of all of this teaching that we embrace hook, line, and sinker about the salvific value of suffering. He suffered for everybody, so you don't have to. I'm just trying to debunk this from some of the ways that we've been taught. It's been embedded in us. It's been indoctrinated in us, and we come with this negative mindset. So then for this, I want you to understand, as Jesus suffered again, he had one betrayal. Everybody didn't betray him. Out of the 12, everybody didn't betray him. He had one betrayal. So let's put this in perspective. We're talking about 11-1. So stop this living where you think everybody is against you and the whole world hates you. Then I still want you to, as I said earlier, go back and do some introspection. Why are you a magnet for that kind of behavior and that kind of character and personality? Why are you a magnet? There's something that's drawing that to you. All right, because you will draw what is operating at your frequency, and that I want to tell you. If you're coming positive, you're going to get positive. If you're always negative, you're going to get negative. And that's why I chose a negative mind will never give you a positive life. Hear me, a negative mind, this whole salvific value of suffering. And can I come here? Part of this salvific value of suffering, particularly for Black people, particularly for people of color, is so that you feel as oppressors, hear me when I say this, as oppressors exact their unequal and unfair and unjust behaviors towards you, you feel as though you are doing God's work by suffering. I'm going to say it again. Oppressors have used and taught the salvific value of suffering, the saving value of suffering, to keep you oppressed, so that as they oppress you, you feel as if you are doing the work and the will of God because you're suffering. No. And this I want you to reject in all of its forms. It is a tool of bondage. It's a tool to hold you in a state and in a place that does not allow you to advance and move forward and upward. It's a mindset that will keep you in a low frequency. Hear me when I say it. This mindset will keep you in a low frequency, which is why I wanted to address it, because it's prevalent and prevailing in so many people's minds and energies. And then they wonder why they get the result that they're getting. But this is what has been taught, and this is what has been ingrained in you. And so this is the manifestation that comes out of it. You expect to suffer. You expect to suffer. You're worried and looking over your shoulder if you're not suffering. And then know very little about pleasure. And as I said, there's two poles. There is pain, but there's also pleasure. And pleasure should not be every now and again. Pleasure should not be every now and again. It should not be pain, 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 pain. Pleasure, pain, 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 pain. Pleasure, no. Reject that. Reject it. Reject that. I don't know how hard and how emphatically I can stress this. Reject that. Reject it. Because that will be adverse energy to your boss energy. That will be an enemy to your boss energy. That will be at war with your boss energy. Because once you shed this idea, I'm supposed to suffer, and you understand I am entitled to joy, to pleasure, that my joy might be full, that I might have life and life more abundantly. Once you begin to understand I deserve that, that is really what all of this was supposed to be about, was to bring me into life and life more abundantly. When you really begin to understand that I am not here to embrace this salvific value of suffering teaching. When I see Jesus, amen, all my trials, all my suffering, it will be over. When I see Jesus, I learned how to suffer. I learned how to live right. I learned. And y'all sing that. And y'all say that with every fiber of your being. And as you speak it, as you sing it, as you preach it, as you teach it, as you live it, you're in direct conflict with your boss energy. You're in direct conflict with the fact that pleasure and pain, and let's put this in perspective. I can't say this enough. 1 friend out of 12 betrayed him. 1 out of 12 betrayed him. That's 11-to-1 ratio. 4 days out of 12,227.5 days that he walked to the face of the earth, he suffered. 4 days. Please put this in proper perspective. Understand as well, the resurrection marked that the metamorphosis had taken place, and now we're moving with all power. Now we're moving with all power. Hear me when I say that. Yes, you. So come on, Cassandra. You're speaking volumes to me, myself, and I, and the need to vibrate higher, think higher, move higher. I'm unpacking the move instead of packaging. Come on here. Much to take to the dump to burn and bury. Come on with that, sis. That's what I want to evoke. That's what I want to provoke in you. Burn this trash. Burn these mindsets. Burn these teachings. Reject them, because it only holds you in bondage. So listen, J. Trey, even when you talk about the different faiths that are huge on it, that's why I said I'm coming from Judeo-Christian, but this can apply to any faith tradition that teaches this mindset that you got to suffer. You've got to suffer. You've got to suffer. I want you all to come to another place of existence, come to another mindset, because that, beloved, is not where your boss energy lies. Now, so with that, I'm going to deal with the ordinance of the church. And again, I'm talking from this perspective of Judeo-Christianity only because it's the prominent dominant in this country, but it does apply the concepts, this attitude of suffering and waiting for the other shoe to drop, living in a world full of pain, living a life full of just nothing but woe is me. No, reject that. It transcends all faith traditions. So please, I'm using Judeo-Christianity as an example because it is the dominant, prominent, but I don't care anywhere you're hearing this taught in any way, shape, or form. I want you to reject it. So the symbolism, the ordinances of the church. So what do these symbols mean? Feet washing means the willingness to serve one another. And this idea that I'm not so high and mighty, I'm your sister, I'm your brother. And this speaks to, for those that are like, man, when you start teaching and talking about boss energy, you're basically telling people to be egoists. You're basically telling people to be narcissists. No, I'm not. Understand what the essence of the meaning behind the feet washing was. The willingness to serve one another. I'm willing to serve Rebel. I'm willing to serve J-Tray, Cassandra Woke, Tall Pumps, everybody in here. I'm willing to serve, and we should all be willing to serve one another. That's what that symbolizes. Communion. I identify with the purpose of suffering. I identify with the purpose of suffering. I know why the suffering of 4 days took place. I know why the death, burial, and the resurrection was what it is. But ultimately, to bring me into my place of resurrection. I understand the baptism, which is a symbol. It's a sign that the death of the old man has happened, and I'm resurrecting out of the water as a new man or woman. Understanding that then in that resurrected state, what did I say before? When the resurrection took place, the resurrection was in a powerful state, not powerless. So help me to understand how we symbolically say we identify with the power of the resurrection, but we still talk from this powerless and this suffering mindset. It's twisted. It's convoluted. And so, again, I want to come back to the resurrection marked the all-powerful state, which then brings us to a place of saying that little meme that I put in on this particular one. I woke up this morning and realized I don't have what it takes to be average. Come on, boss energy. Are y'all hearing me? I woke up this morning and realized I don't have what it takes to be average. Because listen, at the end of the day, stardust wrapped in human flesh that understands, let's put this in perspective, I'm not in that mindset and teaching of the salvific value of suffering that says this is a suffering way. I've got to suffer. And if I'm not suffering, I must be on the wrong territory. Reject that. And again, I'm going to go back and I'm going to close out with this, but look at that ratio for everybody that's always looking. If you don't trust your people, if you don't trust the people in your world, I'm going to say it once more and again, go back and look at what level you're vibrating at. The ratio, one betrayal out of 12, which means 11-1. And then you're talking about 4 days out of 12,227.5 days. Please put this in perspective. Please put this in perspective, because this idea that this is the way you're supposed to live, no ma'am, no sir. So, I'm always here to disrupt. That is my energy, and that's how I come to disrupt. So let's talk back to the text. Is your belief system regarding suffering imbalanced? Is your belief system regarding suffering imbalanced? That's a personal introspective question you've got to answer for yourself. And I'm going to go back to our opening slide. Today, we're talking about pleasure and pain and recalibrating your expectations. What are your expectations? If you expect pain, baby, you're going to create, you're going to attract, you're going to magnify suffering. Okay, please be clear on that. Please be clear on that. If you understand the pleasure, and I did again say pleasure and pain, because you're going to have, we understand that there is going to be pain, but let's put that thing in balance and perspective to reality. Again, what was communion? I identify with the purpose of suffering, but I don't live in suffering. I don't abide in suffering. I don't idolize suffering. I haven't made a God out of suffering. We've got to release this mindset and this mentality. This is a suffering way. And I've learned how to suffer. And you're right. It's not natural. You've learned how to suffer. Somebody taught you how to suffer. Somebody told you how to suffer. Somebody instructed you how to suffer. That's why, and there goes my alarm right on cue. That's why when you get back to your boss energy and you reconnect back to the core, when you reconnect back to the ground, when you reconnect back to the elements and your frequency and your energies, when you reconnect back in those spaces and places, you will no longer live from this place of believing the lie of the salvific value of suffering. That is not the way you were intended to live, that you might have life and have it more abundantly, and that your joy might be full. And my alarm just went off, so we're going to wrap it up right there. And I'm going to come back. And I hope that this has helped you. I hope that this has blessed you on today in our class. I really wanted to approach this because when you start talking about boss energy, what are the things that become antagonistic or pulling against the boss energy that you have? These types of very subtle, very covert, very hidden type teachings that begin to take root down in your heart, in your mind, and in your mindset. What do we start with? The difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Let's come into the growth mindset so that we can live another reality. I'm gonna come back and read the comments. J. Trey, most common phrase you've heard: Jesus died so you could live, but it was said in a way that I felt bad that it happened. Come on, J. Trey. Come on with that. Come on. I love that. And it shouldn't be. That's so twisted and convoluted. But again, that emphasis and where you started feeling bad is because they want to emphasize the suffering, and all the suffering that went. Listen, even the crucifixion, the Bible says, but for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. You understand that? For the joy that was set before him, he endured the death of the cross. So that was a joy for him, but we preach it in such a way that we feel bad that he did it. And again, that's for control. That's for manipulation. Because when they got your feelings and your emotions tied up in it, once you become emotional about that thing, they got you. So thank God I am not in this alone, and this is the best place to be equipped for victory in Boss Energy Pathway. You are not alone, Cassandra. You are not alone. And this is an area that many people are traveling through and trying to work out in themselves, because this teaching is very strong. It's very powerful. And so at the end of the day, I promise you, you are not alone. There are a lot of people that need to break loose in this area. So, it just is what it is. Thank you for sharing that. You have a question. Since Jesus knew this day would come, you don't think it hung over him? He knew the whole time. He knew the whole entire, and there's a scripture that says, for this purpose was the Son of God manifested to destroy the works of the devil. He knew his whole life that was the day. And even if you go to St. John 17, where he begins to pray, he basically says, I knew this was my calling from the beginning. And I am ready. I'm now ready. The time has come. Now strengthen me for this. And even prior to that, when you see him working through, he knew that's why he came. But he's like, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. Because there's still that side that was like, wait a minute, I don't want to suffer. I know this is why I came, but I don't want to suffer. But he kept working and pressing through till he got worked through that. But and even in our own journeys, isn't it true that many times when we're in the middle of what it is that we're walking through, and I'm not going to necessarily call it suffering, I'm going to say the challenges that we have in life. Because listen, we haven't resisted the blood. Ain't nobody drew blood on us. All of the things that he went through, and we say, oh, I'm suffering like Jesus. No, you're not. No, you're not. Ain't nobody beat you with the cat of nine tails. Nobody put a thorny crown in your brow and pressed it in. Nobody beat the flesh off your back. Nobody hung you. Come on, no. So, but what we call suffering is not suffering. But when we go through the challenges that we have in life, we also many times feel like, I don't want to go all the way through this process. And it's about the process, J. Trey, that process. And that's what the communion is about. We identify that the process, we commune with that, we partake of that, and we understand that I am, he did it, so I didn't have to go through it. And I am, even in my processes, which are not suffering. I want to come back and say that because, I know we say I'm suffering. We're really not. But at the end of the day, this whole element of I understand the purpose for suffering is to bring me to a resurrection power where power is there. So you are so welcome. You are so welcome. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm checking out. Let's see what else we have here. Thank you, Two Tams. Thank you, Two Tam. Come on. That's the way I want people to understand. While we running around there's more lack of trust in so-called believers than almost anybody. There's more lack of trust and more fear in believers than almost anybody. And that's a sad thing. We should be the ones that have hope, faith, and trust. But it's almost the flip side of that. I believe nobody. It's twisted. It's just so twisted. But I want y'all to understand that ratio. I want y'all to understand that ratio for what it is, and let it be what it is. So only one betrayed. Okay. Only 4 days of suffering. Okay. Let's get that straight. And then understand that the metamorphosis brought forth power. And with that, I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to come back in the room. Anybody that would like to talk, anybody that would like to share, that's in Discord. And I'll continue reading what you all are writing in Twitch as well. I know you can't talk directly to us, but you can definitely continue to type. You think you're beginning to see it as we will go through what we go through in order to be free on the other side. Come through with that. Come through with that. Absolutely. 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 And absolutely. I like that. I like that, J Trey. I like that. And continue to type if you like. Anybody in Discord that would like to unmute, go ahead and unmute yourselves and go right ahead and share. J Trey. Oh, okay. I read that one. Let me see. Somebody else said something. Let me bring it on down. Cassandra, I'm growing and learning to embrace death and as part of a life cycle, and it is in a new way. In this process of life, I am blessed to experience death plans an important role before my final process. Come on here. And it is just part of the process. And I'm gonna tell you what, even that, we've taught death in a way, even from the religious standpoint, that people, Cassandra, are absolutely traumatized about death, unfortunately, because it is just part of the process. And I'm gonna say this again, not to be crude, but I'm gonna say this from the perspective when the Bible talks about we should rejoice when people pass or transition, and we should weep when they're born. And we do the exact opposite. We rejoice when they're born, and we just almost lose it completely when they pass, because we flip that script so tremendously, and we don't understand the process. And that's the highest elevation in a process that you can obtain, is that transitioning from this plane to a higher plane of your spirit. And people just do not understand or embrace that perspective. And I understand the grieving and the loss of that individual from your lives. But I also understand, as you've pointed out here, this idea of death as a part of your process, and being able to do everything you need to do and make your plans and do as you need to do to walk in this boss energy in life. That's why we're alive. That's why we are alive. And once we have that place of accomplishment, it's time for graduation. And if we could see death as a graduation instead of a loss, it would make a tremendous difference in a lot of our lives. But we don't teach it that way, unfortunately. Again, anybody in Discord that wants to unmute, just go ahead and unmute and I'll acknowledge you and go right ahead and talk. I see the chat. Let me open up the chat. It's going on here. Tall pumps. This again, very eye-opening. We have been indoctrinated to survive, and that particularly for Black folks, tall pumps. And we've even taught and indoctrinated so heavily, suffer. Well, don't you know the slave masters wanted you to believe in suffering? Don't you know the oppressors wanted you to believe in suffering? Don't you know that racist folk want you to believe in suffering? Do you understand what I'm saying? This plays very well into that agenda and the mind control element that comes into it. If I believe I'm supposed to suffer, when you cause me to suffer, it's like, well, God is just using them. No, God ain't. No, ma'am, no, sir. No, ma'am, no, sir. That's devilment. That's pure devilment. And God's not using you to help me to suffer to get to another place. So, again, this idea of trying to survive and work through the pain rather than thrive and thrive more abundantly. My reconnection and resurrection must have me thrive and expect abundance. That's where I'm going. Absolutely, tall pumps. This is boss energy, where your reconnection and resurrection must have you thrive and expect. And that's the key right there. What do you expect? The topic today, pain and pleasure, recalibrating your expectations. What do you expect? Because what you expect is exactly what you're going to manifest. Now, more than preparing for the other shoe to fall off. Come on. And y'all know, I know it's a lot of people that live that waiting for the shoe to drop reality. This is showing me how to live in a more growth mindset rather than in a fixed mindset of survival. Come through with that. And that's exactly what I want you to have as a takeaway from this lesson. And so thank you so much, Tall Pumps. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else in Discord that would like to chat, anybody that wants to take yourself off mute and talk, you're definitely welcome to do so. And you're also welcome to continue talking over in the Twitch chat as well. Kai Chick is typing. I see you typing, sis. Awesome. Awesome. She said, this lesson is helping me break through the survival mode. And that, especially for Black folks, I love everybody and everybody can take this course, but especially speaking to Black people, Indigenous and people of color, we cannot continue in a mere sheer survival mode. That's what we've done for so many centuries. We've survived. We have survived. Now, beyond survival, it's time to thrive. It is absolutely, positively time to thrive. Hear me when I say that. Pleasure is not bad. Despite popular teachings and popular beliefs in these suffering mindsets, pleasure is not bad. It does not identify that you're on demonic territory, because why are you so happy and why are you so gleeful? Something bad should be happening in your life if you're really spiritual. No, ma'am, no, sir. No, ma'am, no, sir. When you really begin to move into that realm of spirituality, you will shed so much of that mindset. So please, please, please understand it. Please know it. Please know it. That's not the way that you're intended and designed to live. That your joy might be full. That my joy might be full in you, and that your joy might be full. Those are the two scriptures that we put up, and John 10:10, that you might have life and life more abundantly. We're not getting that from suffering. Please hear me. We're not getting that from suffering. Come on here, two Tams. Life and life more abundantly every day. That's why I keep talking about boss energy, that you walk in it on a continuum, not just in and out, vacillating back and forth, but life and life more abundantly every day. That's my expectation. I expect this morning, not for the shoe to drop. I expect this morning to get up and live life and life more abundantly. I expect this morning to get up and have joy, full joy, because that's the whole purpose, that my joy might be full. That's what I expect. I expect nothing less than that. I expect nothing less than that. That is my all-time expectation every day. Expectation, life more abundantly, expectation, full joy Expectation. You understand what I'm saying? That I would prosper and be in health as my soul prospers. Expectation. That's my expectation. That I'm going to walk in this boss energy, and I'm not. I absolutely, positively am not. I refuse to live a life waiting for the shoe to drop. I refuse that. I reject that in all its ways. BTD mom, looking back, much of my suffering I brought upon myself, but they were lessons. So glad I'm in my happy. Come through. I'm glad you're in your happy too. And I think, BTD mom, if a lot of us told the truth, I think the truth is the light. A lot of us would have to acknowledge much of the suffering, as we call it, as we identify to it, we brought on ourselves. There were things and actions where we shot our own selves in the foot, and then we had to recover from shooting ourselves in the foot. And the pain of that shooting, listen, I tell people all the time, just because I shot myself in the foot doesn't mean it didn't hurt. A shot in the foot is a shot in the foot. Just because I shot myself in the foot doesn't mean it hurt. Yeah, it hurts, baby. It hurts. But at the end of the day, if I go through the healing process, it's a lesson of how not to shoot myself in the foot next time. Hello? If I take it for what it is, it's a lesson learned how not to shoot myself in the foot the next time. So you are running toward the roar. Come on, run towards the roar, the light, the truth, the liberty, and the boss energy. Come on, it's already bright in here. Such joy in the midst of pain. Expect it and receive it. Come through, Cassandra. Expect it and receive it. Expect it and receive it. Over here, then darn, it's like I have to staying like this affirmations because of how and what I was taught to believe. Yes, you do. It is a recalibration. And that's why I actually called this lesson that, if you will. I went back to the idea that it is going to require for some of us a recalibration. So to actually remind yourself with affirmations, remind yourself with the realities that at the end of the day, come on and come up for me. At the end of the day, I want you, can let me see if I can get this full view for you. At the end of the day, I want you to have this idea, pleasure and pain, recalibrating your expectations. That's exactly why I named it this. It's a matter of recalibrating your expectations. So that being said, I hope anybody else, I want to give everybody time to speak. I appreciate you guys are really giving me good stuff over here. Good stuff. Keep on running to the roar. Keep on running to the roar. Let me come back and pick this up and see if anybody, I understood. You want to start saying, I understood what you meant, then darn. You want to start saying this affirmation because of how and what you were taught. And it is a recalibration. It is a recalibration. But I promise you, when you recalibrate your mind, when you recalibrate your energy, it will produce fruit. It absolutely will. We are creators, created in the image of God. And I'm going to say this and I'm going to get out. So when we talk about being created in the image of God, we're not talking about eyes, ears, nose, mouth. As many times as I've seen people go through this whole imagery thing, if God has an eye, how big is it? If God has a nose, how big is it? Come on, y'all. We're not talking about physical properties. I'm created in the image of God. And what is the image of God? God spoke and it was. God spoke and it was. God spoke and it was. So I want you to understand your boss energy, the created in the image of God that you possess is you speak and it creates. You speak and it creates. Just like I said about Job, the thing that I feared the most has come upon me. He spoke and it created. He spoke. And understand, speaking is not just verbalized words coming out of your mouth. Your mindset, your energies, what you internalize and believe on the inside of your shando. That's you speaking. And what you speak will manifest. And that's why so many people that preach suffering, that's why all they have is suffering, because what they believe, it manifests. Okay. And with that, we're going to get ready to come to a conclusion. I think we're coming right up to the top of the hour. I appreciate everybody. This was our open session. It was open today to Institute for Higher Consciousness, to our Twitch and other streams. This was our once a month. We open it up to everybody. And so for those that came in Twitch, I appreciate you so much. Hope this has been a blessing to you. J Trey, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate you. Den Darn, thank you so much for coming in. Listen, I appreciate every last one of you. BTD Mom, I want to make sure everybody over here, Cassandra Woke 2022, I appreciate all of you all coming in Twitch on today and talking and sharing. And of course, to everybody that's in Discord, thank you so very much. And that'll conclude our session for today. Recalibrate your expectations. Recalibrate expectations. Please do. Please do. Uh-oh, did I see Fairly All Day? Oh my goodness, Fairly All Day. Come on in here. Come. Oh, listen, I appreciate you coming in. That's my dearest friend right there. That's my dearest friend. I'm glad you feel like you've learned something today, J Trey. Come on, that's my dearest friend. I did not know you were here, but thank you so much. Again, this is our open session of Institute for Higher Consciousness. I appreciate everybody that came through. Take this with you, because what's your expectation? Stop with the salvific value of suffering. Every day, I expect life and life more abundantly. Every day, I expect my joy to be full. That's the way I want you to live. All right. We're out of here. So much love to you, and have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me for Institute of Higher Consciousness. This will be ready and be up to the students. I do have about 15 classes posted. For those of you that were asking about classes, I have about 15 of them posted. Inbox me, reach out to me some kind of way, and I will definitely, if you have a specific class you want to see, or if you just want to go back and watch all of them, let me know. They are out there and they are up on the internet for you to review. So it's there. Just let me know. And I know MCP 812, I already know that you want it. Anybody else that wants it, I will definitely send you those links so you can get into those past classes and go back and review. Kai Chick, no, thank you, sis. You out there doing your public service to the community and still tuned in to class. I appreciate you, sis. That's my evangelist for sure. So much mad love coming to you. So come on. Yes, I'll send you guys the links. I see you, Kai Chick. I'll send you the link. I see you, Den Darn. I'll send you the link. Shelly Thunder, I see you typing. I think you're probably saying send you the link. Keep sending them, because that will be in here where I can go back and snatch those and get those links to you guys, for everybody that wants the links of the past classes. More to come. Fairly All Day, you'd love to have. Absolutely. We'll get Cassandra Woke. I got you. Let me just take a mental note and a mental picture of everybody that's in here, and I'll just send it to everybody. And of course, that way I think we won't miss anyone. All right. So much love coming to you. Let me get this picture right here real quickly before y'all get out, because I don't know that I will. Old gray mare just ain't what she used to be. I don't know. I don't want to trust my memory. Okay, I got everybody captured on cam. You guys have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as Shelly Thunder always says, everyone, enjoy the rest of your day and the weekend on purpose. I love you. See you next time. Have a great one. Bye-bye.